The large view screen on the U.S. horizon showed the approaching alien ship. It was 3 times bigger than any human vessel ever built. Its surface looked like metal mixed with something alive, with strange patterns that seemed to move and shift. Commander Joseph Freeman stood tall on the bridge. His hands were steady, but his heart beat fast. This was humanity's first meeting with aliens. Everything would change after today. "Status report," Joseph said, his voice calm despite the tension. Lieutenant Kate Martinez looked up from her station. "The alien vessel has matched our orbit, sir. They're sending us docking instructions." Joseph nodded. "Send our acceptance, and remind all crew members about first contact protocols." Earth had discovered the signal just 1 year ago. Strange patterns from a star system 30 light-years away. It took months to understand it was an invitation. The aliens called themselves the Sci-Fi Confederation, a group of several advanced species who had been watching Earth for decades. The Horizon, Earth's newest and best ship, was sent to meet them. Its crew was picked from the best of every nation. Kate approached Joseph and spoke quietly. "The diplomatic team is ready, sir, but I'm worried about something." "What is it, Lieutenant?" "The messages we've received. There's something in how they talk about us, almost like they're looking down on us." Joseph frowned. "Then we'll just have to show them what humans are really like." 6 hours later, Joseph led a team of 5 through the connecting tunnel between the ships. The air smelled strange, like cinnamon and metal. The walls pulsed with soft blue light. They entered a large round room. 3 aliens waited for them. They stood over 7 feet tall, with 4 arms and skin that looked like polished stone. Their eyes were large, with 3 pupils each. "Welcome, humans," the center alien spoke in perfect English. "I am Ambassador Zex Dithal of the Sci-Fi Confederation." Joseph stepped forward. "Ambassador, I am Commander Joseph Freeman of Earth. We come in peace and friendship." The alien made a sound like rocks sliding together. It took Joseph a moment to realize it was laughter. "Peace and friendship. Yes, we expected such sentiments from your kind. Fragile creatures often seek protection." Kate stiffened beside Joseph. He kept his face neutral. "We seek mutual respect and cooperation, Ambassador." The alien waved a hand dismissively. "Of course. The Confederation accepts all species, even those less developed." Over the next 3 hours, the meeting continued. The aliens showed amazing technology, holograms that could be touched, devices that could heal wounds instantly, and weapons that could destroy mountains. But with each demonstration came another comment about human weakness. "Your bones break so easily. Your lifespans are tragically short. Your weapons are like children's toys." By the end, Joseph's politeness was stretched thin. The aliens agreed to diplomatic relations and trade, but made it clear they saw humans as lesser beings. Back on the horizon, Joseph called Earth immediately. "We need to be careful," he told the United Nations Security Council. "They have technology centuries beyond ours, but they view us as pets at best." Within a month, Earth's governments formed the United Earth Defense Initiative. While diplomats smiled and shared knowledge with the Sci-Fi, engineers and scientists worked in secret. New ships, new weapons, new defenses. Joseph was promoted to admiral and put in charge of the first UEDI fleet. As he looked at the stars from his new office on the lunar base, he hoped they would never need these preparations. But he remembered the look in Zexthal's eyes. Not hatred, but something worse. Dismissal. As if humans weren't even worth considering. "They think we're weak," he whispered to himself. "Let's hope they never learn how wrong they are." 5 years had passed since first contact. Dr. Alan Pierce wiped sweat from his forehead as he worked in the Joint Research Lab. The air was kept too warm for human comfort, but perfect for Sci-Fi bodies. Like everything else, human needs came second. Alan looked at his data again. His Sci-Fi partner, Science Director Krulvex, had already left for the day. taking credit for Alan's work as usual. Another late night. Samantha Wells asked as she entered the lab. Her dark hair was tied back, her eyes tired but sharp. The usual, Alan said. I found a way to increase the efficiency of their medical scanners by 30%. Kralvex will present it tomorrow as his discovery. Samantha nodded. As the top human engineer on the station, she understood. Her energy systems powered half the Xelphori fleet, but her name appeared on no official records. They're restricting access to the Ta-CD system now, she said quietly, claiming it's not suitable for human physiology. Alan's hands paused. That's the third system this year. They're boxing us in. Outside the lab window, the massive shape of a Xelphori warship passed by. Since the alliance began, humans had gained faster than light travel and advanced medicine. But the cost was becoming clear. Humans were treated like clever pets, useful but not equals. Across the station, Captain Frank Carter of the scout ship Pathfinder read the latest reports from Earth with growing concern. His small ship was officially on a mapping mission, but Admiral Freeman had given him other orders too. Sir, his pilot called, we've got something strange. The Xelphori supply ship we've been tracking made an unscheduled stop at these coordinates. Frank studied the map. That's nowhere near their normal routes. Let's take a closer look, but stay out of their sensor range. 6 hours later, the Pathfinder drifted through a dense asteroid field. What they found made Frank's blood run cold. Are you recording this? He asked his sensor officer. Yes, sir. Every bit. Hidden among the asteroids was a massive Xelphori facility. Ships moved in and out, carrying what clearly looked like weapons. Big ones, the kind that could destroy cities. 3 cruisers, 5 destroyer-class ships, and what appears to be a dreadnought under construction. His officer counted. Frank's mind raced. This was less than 2 light years from New Eden, humanity's largest colony outside the solar system. The Xelphori had claimed they were building a cultural center in this sector. Set course for Earth, maximum speed, Frank ordered, and encrypt everything we've gathered. Meanwhile, on the Xelphori homeworld, Ambassador Zex Thal met with the Confederation Council. The humans continue to be useful, he reported. Their adaptability makes them excellent problem solvers, though they require constant direction. The Grand Marshal, a massive Xelphori with battle scars across his stone-like skin, growled. Their expansion troubles me. They breed quickly and establish new colonies constantly. They are no threat, Zex Thal assured him. Their bodies are soft, their weapons primitive. 1 of our warriors equals 10 of theirs. And the defense program they think we don't know about? Another council member asked. Zex Thal made the clicking sound of Xelphori laughter. Let them play at being warriors. It keeps them busy while we position our forces. When the time comes, they will accept protection status or face extinction. Back on Earth, Admiral Freeman received Frank's transmission. He stared at the images of the hidden Xelphori fleet, his worst fears confirmed. We need more time, he told his staff. The new ships aren't ready, and Dr. Pierce's weapons are still in testing. An aide entered with another report. Sir, we've lost contact with our outpost in the Epsilon system. The Xelphori claim it was a communications malfunction, but Freeman closed his eyes briefly. How many people were stationed there? 43, sir. The Admiral's face hardened. Tell all our ships to go to yellow alert. And get me the President. The first plasma bolts hit Nexus 7 without warning. The colony's shields, designed for meteor protection, failed in seconds. 30,000 people lived there. Farmers, engineers, teachers, children. Communications officer Nickel Barnes ran through smoke-filled hallways toward the central command post. The building shook as another blast hit. This is Nexus 7. We are under attack by Xelphori forces. Repeat, we air. Her message cut off as power failed. She switched to emergency batteries. This is Nexus 7. Civilian colony. We have no military presence. Please respond. A cold voice answered. Your colony has been found harboring anti-Confederation elements. Submit to cleansing operations. Nickel looked up at the screens. Self-Story ships filled the sky, more than she could count. She sent one final burst transmission to Earth before destroying the communication equipment so it couldn't be used against other colonies. Outside, Marine Sergeant Chris Rodriguez gathered survivors. He had been on leave, visiting his brother's family when the attack began. Everyone stay low. He ordered the group of 30 civilians. We need to reach the mining tunnels. A woman clutched her young son. Why are they doing this? We had peace. Chris had no answer. He had seen the Self-Story soldiers landing, moving through the streets with cold efficiency. They weren't taking prisoners. Across the colony, similar scenes played out. By nightfall, Nexus 7 had fallen. The Self-Story broadcast the victory across all frequencies, showing humans running, dying, begging. See how they scatter, the Self-Story commander narrated. Soft creatures with no resolve. But they missed something important. Not all humans fled. Chris Rodriguez led his group deep into the colony's abandoned mining system. Nickel Barnes found them 2 days later with more survivors. We need to organize, Chris told them. They think we're beaten. That gives us an advantage. Meanwhile, 2 other human colonies suffered similar fates. Millions watched in horror as the broadcasts continued. The Self-Story made no attempt to hide their actions. Admiral Karen Phillips stood before the United Earth Defense Council on Earth. Her face showed no emotion, but her voice was steel. The Self-Story have attacked 3 colonies without provocation. They've killed civilians and are broadcasting their actions as entertainment. The room was silent. 5 years of preparing, and still they weren't ready. What's our military position? The Secretary General asked. Not good, Karen admitted. Our new ships are faster than theirs, but we're outnumbered 10 to 1. Dr. Pierce's weapons are promising but untested in real combat. And diplomacy? Karen's expression hardened. They've declared that all human colonies must surrender and accept protection status or face destruction. They're not interested in talking. On the main screen, the Grand Marshal of the Self-Story appeared. His stone-like face showed no emotion. Humans of Earth, your species has been found wanting. Your attempts at military development amuse us. Your biological weaknesses disgust us. We offer you one path forward. Accept your natural place as a protected species under our guidance. Resistance will result in the same lesson we taught your pathetic colonies. The transmission ended. In the silence that followed, Karen noticed something strange. The council members weren't showing fear. Their faces reflected something else, something that Self-Story clearly didn't expect. Anger. The Secretary General stood slowly. Admiral Phillips, you are hereby authorized to implement Defense Protocol Omega. All restrictions on military development are lifted. Karen nodded. And our response to the Self-Story demand. Tell them. The Secretary General looked around the room, receiving nods from every representative. Tell them humanity will not bow. As Karen left the chamber, her aide approached with a tablet. Admiral, we're getting something strange from Nexus 7. It's weak, but it appears to be a human signal. Karen took the tablet. A smile slowly formed on her face. It seems that Self-Story don't know humans as well as they think they do. Admiral Karen Phillips stood before the camera. Her uniform was perfect, her face calm. But her eyes burned with something that Self-Story had never seen in humans before. People of Earth and all human colonies, she began. Today I speak not just to you, but to the entire galaxy. 3 days ago, the Self-Story Confederation attacked our peaceful colonies without warning. They have killed thousands of innocent people. They have demanded our surrender. She paused, letting the silence grow heavy. Humanity will not bow. Across Earth and the remaining colonies, millions watched. In hidden bunkers and secret facilities, projects that had been developing for 5 years suddenly went into full production. We trusted the Self-Story. We shared our knowledge, our resources, our friendship. In return, they saw only weakness. Today, they will learn they have made a terrible mistake. On occupied Nexus 7, Sergeant Chris Rodriguez and his growing band of survivors gathered around a small radio. They had spent days collecting weapons, food, and medical supplies from the ruins. "They think we're all dead," Chris told the group. "That gives us an advantage." Nicole Barnes had rigged communications equipment from salvaged parts. "I've mapped their patrol patterns," she said, pointing to a rough diagram. "They're overconfident, using the same routes every day." That night, they'd made their first move. A HFY weapons depot erupted in flames. No human was seen, but a message was found painted nearby. "We are still here." In his laboratory on Earth, Dr. Alan Pierce worked without rest. For years, he had secretly studied HFY biology while pretending to work on their projects. "Their skin is like stone," he explained to the military officers watching his demonstration. "But it has a weakness. The right frequency of sonic waves makes it brittle." He activated a small device, a sample of HFY armor, previously unbreakable, cracked like dry clay. The officers exchanged looks. "How soon can you deploy this?" "Mass production starts tomorrow," Alan replied. "But that's just the beginning." Nearby, Samantha Wells met with engineers from Earth's fleet. "Every energy system I built for the HFY has a hidden weakness," she explained, showing diagrams. "A specific signal will cause their power cores to shut down for exactly 3 minutes. 3 minutes isn't long," an admiral noted. Samantha smiled. "It's enough if you know it's coming." On the front lines, the first human counterattacks surprised the HFY. Ships they thought were primitive suddenly displayed advanced weaponry. Defenses they thought impenetrable were bypassed. But something else confused the aliens even more. Human soldiers fought differently than their training simulations predicted. When cornered, instead of surrendering, humans became more dangerous. A HFY commander filed a report. "The humans show unexpected behavior in combat. When their comrades fall, instead of retreating, they seem to gain strength. Their eyes change. Their body chemistry alters. They ignore injuries that should incapacitate them." The Grand Marshal dismissed these concerns. "Isolated incidents. Their biology is weak. Their bones break easily." Then came the battle for Outpost Delta. A small human mining facility, thought to be defenseless, was targeted for a simple conquest. The HFY sent a single cruiser. The cruiser never returned. Surveillance footage showed human miners using modified equipment as weapons. When the HFY landed troops, the miners fought with tools, with bare hands, with anything they could find. Their faces were twisted with rage. They did not stop advancing even when shot. They did not make sound when wounded. The last transmission from the HFY commander was brief. "They are not what we thought. They are not weak. They err." The transmission ended there. When the Grand Marshal viewed the footage, he felt something new. The humans had looked into the camera before destroying it. Their eyes held something he had never imagined seeing in such soft creatures. Not fear, not panic. Pure, focused rage. For the first time, the Grand Marshal wondered if his species had made a grave miscalculation. 6 months passed. What the HFY expected to be a quick conquest had turned into a grinding war. Now humanity was ready to take back what was theirs. Operation Thunderstrike began in the darkness of space. Captain Frank Carter's ship, Pathfinder, led a fleet of stealth vessels toward Nexus 7. Their hulls were coated with a material that absorbed sensor scans, making them nearly invisible. "All ships report ready, sir," his first officer said. Frank nodded. "Begin approach. Remember, our primary mission is to link up with Rodriguez's resistance fighters." We hit their command center, their communications array, and their main power station. On the surface of Nexus 7, Sergeant Chris Rodriguez received the coded message. 6 months of hit-and-run attacks had kept his people alive, and that Selfori confused. What started as 30 survivors had grown to over 300. The aliens never expected humans to survive this long. "They're coming," Chris told Nickel Barnes, who had become his second in command. "We move at dawn." Nickel smiled. It wasn't a happy smile, but the look of someone ready for payback. "The welcoming party is ready." Across the colony, hidden humans prepared weapons and explosives. Some were soldiers, but most were ordinary people. Teachers, farmers, doctors, who had learned to fight because they had no choice. In orbit, the human fleet emerged from stealth just outside Nexus 7's defense perimeter. The Selfori ships, caught by surprise, scrambled to respond. Frank's voice was steady as he gave the order. "All ships, deploy Dr. Pierce's sonic disruptors." The weapons fired, not explosive shells or energy beams, but precisely tuned sound waves. On the Selfori ships, stone-like armor began to crack. Warriors who had boasted about human weakness suddenly found their natural protection failing. At the same moment, Samantha Wells' hidden code activated. Selfori ship engines flickered and died. For 3 crucial minutes, they floated helpless. Human ships swarmed forward. They were smaller, but now they had the advantage. On the surface, Chris gave the signal. Explosions rocked Selfori outposts across the colony. Nickel led a team to the communication center. They moved like shadows, using knowledge of their home that the invaders lacked. The Selfori commander sent a desperate message to the fleet. "The humans are everywhere. They appear from nowhere." What confused the Selfori most was how the humans fought. Their scientists had studied human biology, knew their limits. But the humans on Nexus 7 exceeded those limits. They ignored pain. They kept fighting with injuries that should have stopped them. One Selfori warrior, captured briefly before dying of wounds, told his captors, "Your eyes change when you fight. They burn. How do you do this?" Chris didn't answer. He didn't fully understand it himself. He only knew that when he thought about what the Selfori had done, the families they'd killed, the homes destroyed, something inside him changed. His vision sharpened. His strength doubled. Pain faded away. The humans had a name for it now: battle rage. In orbit, the fight was just as fierce. Frank's ship took heavy damage but kept fighting. When a Selfori cruiser rammed them, damaging their weapons, Frank ordered his crew to board the enemy vessel instead. The aliens were shocked when humans cut through their hull and poured in, eyes wild, moving with a speed and strength that Selfori had never seen in training simulations. By the end of the day, Nexus 7's orbit was clear of enemy ships. On the surface, the main Selfori base was surrounded. Admiral Phillips received the news on Earth with grim satisfaction. "Begin Phase 2, she ordered. "Tell all fleets. Thunderstrike is a success. Launch attacks on all fronts." Across 3 star systems, human ships appeared from hiding. The counterattack had begun. On his ship, the Grand Marshal of the Selfori received increasing reports of defeat. For the first time in the Confederation's history, they were losing a war. "How?" he demanded. "How can such physically weak creatures fight like this?" His science advisor's voice was quiet. "We may have fundamentally misunderstood humans. They have something we do not." "What?" "When protecting their own, they become something else entirely." The war entered its 2nd year. What began as a desperate defense had turned into a human offensive pushing deeper into Selfori space. The aliens who once mocked human weakness now feared human determination. The Selfori Confederation, once united in their view of humans as inferior, began to fracture. 3 of the 11 species that made up the Confederation sent secret messages to Earth asking for separate peace talks. Admiral Karen Phillips stood on the bridge of the Defiance, Earth's newest battleship. Out the window, the stars of the Epsilon system glowed against the blackness of space. This system held the main Selfori forward base, the staging ground for their attacks on human colonies. "Status of the fleet?" she asked. "All 27 ships in position, Admiral." The Wrath-class battleships are at the front as ordered. Karen nodded. The Wrath-class ships had been built in secret before the war, hidden in asteroid bases. They were Earth's answer to Sci-Fi size advantage, smaller but faster, with weapons designed specifically to target Sci-Fi weaknesses. Begin the attack. All ships, advance. The human fleet moved forward as one. Immediately, Sci-Fi defense platforms opened fire. Energy beams sliced through space, but the human ships were ready, their shields enhanced by Samantha Wells' latest designs. The battle raged for hours. The Defiance took heavy damage, its bridge hit by a direct strike. Karen was thrown across the room as systems exploded around her. Admiral. An officer held her up. We need to evacuate you to another ship. Karen wiped blood from her face. No. We push forward. She looked at the tactical display. Despite the damage, the human fleet was breaking through. Tell all ships to focus fire on their command center. Meanwhile, on the planet below, a Special Forces team led by Captain Frank Carter and Sergeant Chris Rodriguez infiltrated the Sci-Fi base. Their mission was to gather intelligence and free any human prisoners. Security system disabled, Nicole Barnes reported. She had joined the Special Forces after Nexus 7 was liberated, her knowledge of Sci-Fi systems proving invaluable. Chris checked his weapon. The sonic disruptor hummed with power. Let's move. They found the prison complex deep underground. What they discovered there changed everything. Oh my God, Frank whispered as they opened the cells. Children. Hundreds of human children taken from the colonies. Some were being used for experiments. Others for something worse. Entertainment. The Sci-Fi had been forcing them to fight each other while aliens watched. Chris stared at a small boy, no more than 6 years old, with scars across his face. Something inside him snapped. Get them out, he told Nicole, his voice dangerously calm. Get them all out and back to the ships. What are you going to do? She asked, though she already knew. Chris checked his weapons. I'm going to find whoever is in charge. In orbit, the battle reached its peak. The Defiance's engines were damaged, its weapons at half power. But Karen refused to retreat. Ma'am, we've received a transmission from the ground team, her communications officer reported. They found human children in the base, hundreds of them. Silence fell across the bridge. Karen's face, already hard from months of war, turned to stone. Send to all ships, she said, her voice ice. No mercy. The human fleet surged forward with renewed purpose. Ships that were damaged beyond normal fighting capacity rammed Sci-Fi vessels. Crews performed maneuvers that their own tactical computers labeled as impossible. On the main Sci-Fi command ship, the Grand Marshal watched in growing horror as the human fleet, though badly damaged, continued to advance. Reports came in from the planet. Human special forces had breached the most secure areas of the base. They moved with a speed and ferocity that defied explanation. They should not be able to keep fighting, he said to his advisors. Their ships are breaking apart. Their soldiers are bleeding. Why do they not stop? From the corner, a Sci-Fi scientist answered quietly. Because we took their young. There is nothing more dangerous in the universe than a species fighting for its children. 3 months after the Battle of Epsilon, the Sci-Fi Confederation called for peace. Their main fleet was destroyed, their leadership in chaos. The species that once saw humans as weak now feared them above all others. The peace conference took place on a neutral space station built jointly by humans and the Mesdara, a species that had broken away from the Confederation during the war. Ambassador Zexthal, who had first dismissed humans as fragile creatures, was gone, replaced by the more moderate Vex Lauren. Commander Joseph Freeman, now promoted to general, led the human delegation. 5 years ago, he had met the Sci-Fi for the first time. Now, he represented humanity as victors. The room was tense as the delegates gathered. Dr. Alan Pierce sat beside Samantha Wells, both now heroes to humanity. Captain Frank Carter and Nicole Barnes stood near the wall, still uncomfortable in formal settings after months of guerrilla warfare. Sergeant Chris Rodriguez, now Major Rodriguez, stood at attention near the door, his eyes never leaving the Sci-Fi representatives. "We are prepared to hear your terms," Vexloren said, his voice lacking the arrogance that once characterized Sci-Fi speech. Joseph unfolded a single piece of paper. "First, the Confederation will acknowledge all human worlds as sovereign and independent. Second, all human prisoners will be returned immediately. Third, the Confederation will pay for rebuilding the destroyed colonies." Vexloren nodded slowly. "These terms are acceptable. We have already begun gathering the human children for return." "There's one more thing," Joseph said. "We want the truth. Why did you attack us? Why did you take our children?" The alien was silent for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. "We believed physical strength was the measure of a species. Your bodies break easily. Your lifespans are short. By our standards, you were weak. We did not understand that strength comes in many forms." He looked around the room at the human faces. "We took your children because our scientists wanted to understand what makes humans so resilient, so adaptable. We thought we could extract this quality, use it for ourselves." Chris stepped forward, anger clear on his face. Joseph held up a hand, stopping him. "And what did you learn?" Joseph asked. "That we made a terrible mistake," Vexloren replied. "That a physically weaker species can possess strengths we never imagined. That rage, properly channeled, can overcome any physical advantage." The peace treaty was signed that day. The war that began with human weakness ended with human strength acknowledged across the galaxy. 1 month later, a memorial was unveiled on Nexus 7. It stood where the first attacks had hit, a simple stone monument listing the names of those lost. Joseph stood beside Vexloren as hundreds of humans gathered for the ceremony. Children rescued from Sci-Fi captivity placed flowers at the base of the monument. Many still bore scars, both visible and hidden. "Will there ever be true peace between our people?" Vexloren asked quietly. Joseph watched as a young girl with burned scars across her face placed a flower on the memorial. Despite everything she had suffered, she smiled at the alien delegation without fear. "That's what makes humans special," Joseph said. "The same passion that makes us dangerous when threatened makes us capable of forgiveness." Behind them, Admiral Phillips approached with representatives from 3 other alien species who had sought alliance with Earth after seeing human capabilities. "The galaxy is changing," she told Joseph. "Other species want to know if humans will lead a new coalition." Joseph looked at the gathering. Humans who had suffered greatly now worked to build something new. The rage that had carried them through war was channeled into creation. "We will," he said, "but not through fear." As the ceremony ended, a group of alien delegates watched human children playing near the memorial. One of the Mesdera spoke quietly to Vexloren. "They contain multitudes. Their capacity for kindness equals their capacity for rage. We would do well to remember this." Vexloren nodded. The species that had once dismissed humans as weak now understood the truth. It was not the hardness of one's skin that determined strength, but the fire within.